Can't wait for this entire season because I believe this year is going to be different than most years for this particular man. But he's going to handle it incredibly. You know why? Because anytime this guy has a whistle in his hand and a team in front of him, he's going to coach them like a beast. Greatest college football coach of all time. A man who's a 7-time national champion. West Virginia boy at heart, though. Ladies and gentlemen, Coach Nick Saban.
How we doing today?
Coach, fantastic now that we see your beautiful smiling face. Okay, let's dive right in here. There's been a few days removed from the last game. Big storm. Everybody's talking about your hair. Thought you looked good, by the way. Thought you looked good in that rainstorm. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I felt good.
Yeah, you looked good. You know what I mean? That was my big takeaway. You know, everybody's talking about, like, Coach Saban in the middle of the storm walking out there. I'm like, Coach Saban looks good.
Great look.
Looks young in there. You know what I mean? Because with me, when I'm in public, the rain comes, we got a spray tan coming off.
Yep.
You know what I mean? We got hair all over the place. You looked phenomenal. You need to know that. Now, let's talk into the game that we got coming up here against Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, massive part of the conversation anytime he's playing against you because of your history. You obviously hear that, see that, and what are your thoughts on how big the media makes your guys' relationship?
Well, I think everybody sort of makes the relationships with guys that have worked here, and we play against each other, and you know, that's always a big story. You know, Lane did a fantastic job when he was here. We kind of went from old school ball to, you know, modern day ball, I'm going to call it, in terms of doing some things with RPOs and advantage throws, and really sort of set us off for the future of what we do on offense and what we've been able to do on offense. So I have nothing but respect for Lane and the kind of coach he is. They're doing a great job at Ole Miss. I mean, they're one of the best offensive teams in the country in terms of yards, production, problems created by what they do. So this is a challenge. It's always a challenge when you play against, you know, good former assistants.
Hey, he's singing your praises as well. It's great to hear. It is a beautiful thing to kind of watch take place. And I think we all watch Lane Kiffin mature as a coach, not only in the NFL, but also in college to get to the point where he's at now. I think we're all incredibly pumped for him. And you're talking about his offense. Let's talk about your offense, Coach. Okay. So interesting decision. I think you would even say this, right? Not playing Milroe, having Buckner and Simpson play, and then now we go to Milroe. Interesting from the outside looking in. I assume there's a plan. What was that a plan going in? Like, how did we get to that decision, Coach? If you could walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think that first off, the other quarterbacks had very close competition, and they didn't really get much of an opportunity to play. So we started this conversation with the fact that, hey, we're going to maybe look at somebody else playing the position, may last for a quarter or whatever. But then you got to get ready to play, and I want to see you handle this. And, you know, everybody handles frustrations a little differently. And I think sometimes you got to direct your frustration and make it a motivator. You can get upset by it, you can get angry by it, but you can also get motivated by it, you know. And I always remember, you know, Michael Jordan, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and he has 3 people when he gets into the Hall of Fame. The coach that cut him, the coach that benched him, and the guy that took his place when he got benched. And he said, this directed my feelings for my whole career in terms of how it motivated me to try to be the best player that I could be. And we want our players, when these things happen, to direct their feelings in a way that's going to help them be better players. Jalen did that this week, and I'm pleased with his performance. He's got nothing to prove, you know, here. He's our guy. He's the guy that, you know, I have confidence in, and I just had a meeting with him a little bit ago and clean up some fundamental things and watch him play.
So the internet reacted to him congratulating Simpson, I believe, whenever he made a big-time play. You're seeing all those things, judging all those things, analyzing all those things, I assume, testing his leadership, seeing what he's made of?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in the end, this will make him better.
Hell yeah, we can't wait to watch. Go ahead, AJ.
Coach, back in the day, you used to hear coaches tell teams, like, hey, block out the noise, don't listen to it, don't worry about whatever's going on outside this locker room. Is that a thing coaches can even say anymore? I mean, the noise is everywhere. We know they're going to see and hear everything. You just try to teach them how to deal with it?
Well, I think the main part of that is I don't think you're ever going to get them to like not hear it, not see it, not be a part of it. Everybody's on the internet, everybody's on their phone. But I think the key to the drill is to direct those feelings in the right way, which means, okay, when I get to practice, when I come to meetings, I'm focused on the things that I need to do to go out and be able to perform well. And you can't let those things upset you. You can't let them frustrate you. You have to direct that energy in a positive way, which is pay attention to detail, play with discipline, do all the things that coach talk always talk about, and try to get it right and let it be a motivator to you in a positive way, because it goes the other way sometimes too. You know, when people are singing your praises,
Oh yeah.
you know, I call it rat poison, because then your humility gets tested, and you know, you're thinking, well, I don't have to go practice today. I don't have to work hard today. We got it. We got this. We got this. And then you're developing bad habits, because you're listening to how good you are, and then you go out and play and you don't play well, get frustrated. So all these things are about directing feelings in the right direction. And that's a challenge for all of us, but certainly something that's important to do at this time of the season, especially for our team.
I would like to spotlight one thing you brought up there about how handling humility and testing humility whenever people are kind of lifting you up. When I was in college, I was on full scholarship to kick balls. Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Did it. Way to go. Good for me. Shout out me. Wasn't offered by any school you were coaching at. Thanks, coach. But only kicking 70-yarders as an 18-year-old. Don't worry about it. But when I got a full scholarship to school, you know, my parents don't have a bunch of extra money, so I didn't want to ask them for any. And at the time, scholarship checks were what they were. I actually got a loan out in the amount of like $40,000 to just go have a good time. And if I always put myself in the modern position of these guys. Yeah, I mean, it's not great, coach. I mean, I should have focused a lot more. We live, we learn, we get older, we mature. Some of these guys are making like millions of dollars to play college football as like 18, 19-year-olds. And I wondered about the ripple effect of like commitment, discipline, accountability, hard work. Because if I was those kids, there's no way I'm showing up at 6 a.m. off-season workouts with the same attitude. Have you seen that? And how do you think, do you just think this generation's different? They can handle it? I'm a doofus. Like, how do we handle that situation? Because I think we're going to miss out on some greats potentially because of maybe getting too content early.
Well, I think that it obviously tests your maturity as a young man when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, and you have a little more to deal with than what we did back in the day when we went to school. And I do think that it's a challenge to how hungry you are, how motivated you are. You know, we all went to school because we were trying to create value for our future. And we were scared to death that we were going to either fail out of school or fail as a player or lose a scholarship or whatever. And that was a real motivating factor for us. And, you know, players have more, which I think it's good for the players.
We agree.
Not against that. So I don't want anybody to think I'm against that. I do think you have to have a certain amount of maturity to be able to manage that and not get satisfied with what's happening, that you have more, but how does it affect your motivation on the field in terms of how good you want to be and the standard that you want to set? And that comes from kind of within who you are. So I think it's important to have the right kind of guys on your team now.
Yeah, when you're recruiting, obviously these are things you're trying to pick up, little tales. I think we talked to Prime and Coach Prime, and he said that when they're on these recruiting visits, they'll hear something said between either the player and the mom or the player and the dad or the uncle and the dad say something. And he's like, not even a part of the interview, but he hears something. He's like, oh, that's a little something that we have to hear. How do you kind of figure out who's right for your culture? Because it feels like over the last, I don't know how many years you've been coaching, it feels like you're a factory of just great player, hard worker, somebody who's willing to sit behind another 5-star. How do you find those guys? Like, what are some of your tricks and tips, I guess?
Well, I think you got to ask a lot of questions. I think if you ask direct questions, whether it's to high school coaches, guidance counselors, the players themselves, like I ask a guy a lot of times, you know, what do you want to accomplish as a college player? They tell me, and I say, well, what does that entail? You know, and what do you have to do to be a great player? So if the guy's sitting there 50 pounds overweight and he says nothing, then this guy must not have the right stuff, you know? But
You got a lot of stuff.
things that he needs to do to be a great player, then I say this guy can self-assess and he's got direction and goals and he's motivated and wants to do the right things. But I think that is the most difficult thing to try to evaluate in recruiting. It's not how fast a guy is or how high he can jump. It's, what is his mental makeup? What is his psychological disposition toward being successful? And that's the hardest thing to judge.
So I assume you have good faith in your team right now, going through some stuff. It's real loud outside. Everybody has kind of written you off. I'm sure you've heard it. Alabama, what are we talking about? You don't even know who the quarterback is. You know what I mean? They're writing you off right now. I assume you have good faith in the cut of your team's jib this year and 100% faith we can go get it still?
I do believe in our team. And I think we got a lot of good people on our team. I think they worked hard. I don't think we've executed and played as well as we're capable of. So that's a work in progress and something that we need to improve on and improve quickly. It's attention to detail, having discipline to do the little things right, creating those habits every day, in practice in terms of what you do. So that's challenge, and that's something that it'll be interesting to see how this team responds to that challenge, because it's something that we need to do better.
All those things are things that are, I think Alabama has like 97 guys in the NFL right now, or 93 guys. Like you have like 93 guys in the NFL and something. West Virginia has like 6 over the last 40 years or something like that. I mean, it is just insane the success you've had. Cal Van Noy has a question about one of your former players.
Hey, Coach. I feel like I've played for Bama with how many teammates I've had, but I want to talk about one specifically, Dante Hightower, a Bama legend. He was just down there a couple weeks. Billy B. Belichick called him Mr. February. I was curious what nicknames you had of him since he's a 2-time national champion, and if you have any nicknames for any current players right now. Just want to get a personal level with you.
Dante's one of my favorites. He was an outstanding player here, but I have a special affinity for Dante and all the guys, Julio Jones and Mark Barron and all those guys. They all came to Alabama when we weren't any good.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they really created the legacy and the standard of what we want to try to accomplish in the program. And even though I don't have any nicknames for him, he's an outstanding player, fine young man. He was actually an honorary captain a couple weeks ago for one of our games. And it's always great to see those guys come back. Marcel Darius was with them. So those guys, they sort of set the tone for who we are and what we are and the standard that we have around here.
I appreciate it, Coach. I know you got a dry sense of humor in there, so I know there's one in there.
Yeah, that's classic. Coach, those first group that just say, I believe in you, that has to feel, and also you recruiting your ass off. Dante Hightower's a great football player. Yeah, like I assume there's a lot of schools that wanted his services, and obviously coming and setting the standard in Alabama is a beautiful thing. He's called Mr. February in New England?
Oh, yeah.
What a nickname.
Won 2 Super Bowls, basically, the Atlanta and the Seattle one. A lot of people credit him for winning those.
Oh, hey, Mr. Football Season, AJ Hawk has a question for you.
Coach, I know you played DB at Kent State, obviously, but speaking to a lot of your former players, they would always tell me how you would come alive, like when you coached the DBs and you coached the secondary. Is that something that you kind of have an affinity for? They would tell me if a guy would make a big play, get a pick, they'd see you dancing down the sidelines or something during one-on-ones, and they would always love to try to impress you in those one-on-ones.
Well, one of the things that I love is coaching players. And I started out as a quarterback in high school, only lasted 1 year as a quarterback in college because I was too short, couldn't see. So they moved me to defense. I never played defense in my life because coaches would never let the quarterback play defense. So I had some really good coaches and some really good mentors, and I just developed an affinity for loving coaching the secondary. And I like coaching the players, and did it in the NFL for a long time and had some good mentors there too. So one of the things that I learned from some former coaches, that when you become a head coach, do you want to really sort of not be your best assistant? Buddy Ryan was the coach of the Arizona Cardinals when I was coaching at the Cleveland Browns as a defensive coordinator for Bill Belichick. And I asked him, what's the biggest difference between being a head coach and, when you were an assistant? You know, you had the best defense in the world with Chicago Bears in the 80s and all that. And he said, I was always somebody's best assistant. And he wasn't saying it in an arrogant way. And he said, I don't think I'm being my best assistant as a head coach. So one of the things I've always tried to do is coach a lot of special teams, coach a lot of defense. Never really coached offense, but got to know offense to coach defense. So I always tried to be my best assistant. And coaching the secondary, coaching defense was always something that, you know, I kind of grew up doing, and I try to be my best assistant as a head coach.
I love that you still got that in you. You know, like coaching special teams is a beautiful thing because I think NFL teams appreciate it because you got starters running down on kicks. You know what I mean? I loved it. Like as a kicker and a punter and somebody, obviously a big advocate for the field position game and how you can look at that stat normally after the score. That's the top stat to tell you who won the game. That's a pretty important one. Then turnovers, the next stat, and then field position, normally the next indicator stat on who won the game and who didn't win the game, and turnovers affect that. But you putting starters out there is always a big time story. I feel like commentators make a big deal out of it. I'm assuming a lot of people have tried to talk you out of that, or no? Is it?
Not really. We try to limit it to, you know, guys playing on two teams. But, you know, what I tell guys on our team, and we try to teach everybody on our team to play special teams. When they come in as freshmen, I don't care if you're 5-star, I don't care whatever, you need to learn how to play special teams. And I tell them stories about, you know, guys that made teams for 8-9 years in the NFL and never really played a position. They were just special teams players. I'm not talking about specialists now. I'm talking about,
Oh yeah.
you know, just, you know, play on special teams for 8 or 9 years, make the Pro Bowl, playing on special teams. And you can't be a backup player on an NFL team if you can't play on special teams. I don't care if you're a running back, a linebacker, a DB, wide receiver. So these slots are important, and your knowledge of being able to do that is going to extend your career or maybe even give you an opportunity to have a career. So that's something that we teach guys. They learn to like it and love it. And we don't have guys begging off of special teams because they kind of see like, you know, this is something that I can create value doing as well.
You're playing chess, bub. You're playing chess. We appreciate the hell out of you joining us. Have a great game this weekend. Good luck, and we'll talk to you next week.
Hi, Pat. Good talking to you guys. Have a good one, man.
Oh, hold on, Coach. Hold on, before you go. What do we do this week that wasn't football? Anything? Did we do anything that wasn't ball this week?
No, not really.
Love that. Ladies and gentlemen, head coach of Alabama, Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Thank you, Coach.